Good evening. Have a little bit heavier topic tonight to discuss, which is taxes. And my sister gave me good advice recently. She said that just start with the end of the story. Sometimes that's what you have to do. So I'm going to start with the end of the story, which is I am a conscientious objector when it comes to taxes. And I'm just gonna I know this is all anecdotal. I'm not trying to preach either. I'm not. But also, this is just something that I just have to put out there, but this is the exact kind of dialogue that I am not interested in my daughters listening to. And the reason is because my story is my story. And I want them to have their own stories. And so I don't want my story to interfere with their authentic experience of life. And potentially because I've had such a story, I think my life could interfere with their life. So I don't share with them a lot of things that are from my past. And so I just have to put trust in my angels to protect them. And I know I'm putting this on the internet, but I just have to have faith in my angels to protect my daughters. So, anyway, that being said, I am a conscientious objector when it comes to paying American taxes. I feel like I need some context behind me saying this. I don't feel like I owe the American government. And I'm going to state my case as to why I don't feel like I owe the American government anything, okay? For one thing, I don't really believe in the Constitution. And I'm not trying to sound entitled or anything like that. It's just through my own life experience, I have found that the values of the Constitution are largely superficial, and I think it's like a cult. It's just a cult mindset, and I don't think there's any foundation behind any of it. So there's a weird sequence of events that happened in my life when I was getting out of elementary school and going into the next level, which is 7th and 8th grade, which is junior high school, 12 and 13 years old. So these things happen all at the same time. For one thing, my older sister, my mom was really depressed all the time, and she was always very hyper-focused on keeping her floors spotless. So she was pretty oblivious beyond any of that, and I just didn't feel like bothering her with anything. I mean, anything. My twin and I were also selectively mute, so we had a really hard time communicating outside of each other anyway. And then my older sister, if I had bloody noses or nightmares or was just emotional at night, most of the time I could sleep with my twin sister, but sometimes I needed my big sister to sleep with. And when I was in 6th grade, she got disfellowshipped. So that means she got kicked out of the religion. And even though she had the bedroom next to me, we weren't supposed to talk to her. So that happened. And then I actually also started getting sexually abused by my friend's dad. And that happened it's just really complicated, and I know I'm going to sound like a psychopath when I explain all this because I just don't get that emotional about it, but I just feel like I was a very lonely person, and I could communicate when I was at their house. And it's hard when you're selectively mute because it's like an anxiety condition. And so when you can't speak, I don't know, it's such a trip, and it's hard for me to explain. So anyway, there were times where it's like I actually enjoyed my time there, and then I'd go home and I cried myself all night, and I didn't sleep because I was crying so much. And those were times when I slept with my big sister, but then she got disfellowshipped. And then when all that was happening at the same time, I was going to go from 6th grade to 7th grade, so that would be a school change. And at the city I was living in, for whatever reason, that was the year where they changed the school lines where you went to school. So where I would have been going to school with all my Jehovah's Witness friends, because we're kind of in the same community, that wasn't going to happen. So instead I got kind of shifted or like bused into like more of like an inner city type school where I didn't know that many people. So all of these three things happened at the same time. And the reason why they kind of all connect is because, so when this happened, when this abusive type stuff started happening, this person had a girlfriend, we'll call her Yessie, and she was young. She was like 19, I think. And one time, she came home during what was happening, and she pulled me outside by my hair, and she beat me up pretty bad. And so that was like extremely frightening. And then I think she had a bunch of cousins that went to the school that I was now going to be bussed into. So when that new school year started, me and my twin sister just kind of immediately just started being kind of tortured. Everyone called us Barbie. And it just, honestly, I don't even have that many memories from it. It was just terrible. It was just terrible, terrible, terrible. And I'm not even going to go into detail, but there were bad things happening at the school. And I did try to tell a teacher about it. And she basically, and that was really hard for me, by the way, too, because my sister and I, really stopped speaking when this all started happening. We really lost our ability to speak. And so it was really hard for me to actually talk to a teacher. But I'll just, bottom line, that conversation was on deaf ears. Because basically, with teachers, and there's a lot of examples I can give from going to this school. That school was like a prison, and for one thing, this was in the 90s, so there was this Cesar Chavez movement happening, and there was this proposition that happened, Proposition 187, I think, or something like that, I don't know, but tensions were high with the Mexicans, and tensions were high anyway. And I felt like I won't even go into it. There was fucking tension at that school. I mean, it was being in prison. It was straight up being in prison. There was no learning happening. There was no learning. It was 100% being babysat. So the adults, they're not going to be there for any other reasons but punitive reasons. So, I learned from that situation that adults are around for punitive reasons only. Okay, let me give you just an example of how callous they were, okay? So things started getting pretty bad. I actually had this group of guys at a certain point push me into a wall and a couple of them were like trying to stick their tongues down my throat and shit. And it just got really scary. And at a certain point, you know, like I couldn't really talk to my parents about anything because for one thing, I didn't want to talk to the elders, and I didn't want to, you know, I just had nowhere to go with any of my problems. And then when I did try to tell a teacher, like she just kind of totally blew me off, because she can't have the kids turn on her, you know. She's not going to take a moral stance. She doesn't care. It's just a fucking paycheck to her. And it's an unwinnable war anyway. She's not there to educate. So at a certain point, I ended up beating up a girl really bad at school. And I kind of just I did lash out, and she was a weak person to choose. So it wasn't like a brave move that I did or anything like that. But it did shift a narrative a little bit. Like, for example, my sister and I quit being called Barbie, and instead they called me Loco Weda or something like that. And I don't know, things shifted. And the adults around, well, for one thing, like the black security guard, Mr. Hodges, called me George Foreman when my mom picked me up from school. And so to me, that's taking things pretty lighthearted. I was feeling sick to my stomach when all of that was going down because, you know, when we got into the office and had to call our parents, I don't even think this girl had a phone at home. And people didn't have cell phones in the 90s and stuff. Like, I immediately felt extremely bad for what I had done. I felt like a coward. I felt like a huge bully. Anyway, so from that experience, I realized everyone around is just standing there and no one is doing anything ever. And no one is taking a moral stance ever. So that's what I learned from school. And then what I learned from cops is that the rules don't apply to them. They're not there to protect and serve. They're actually there to hand you traffic tickets. And even those who are just like the most embarrassing, they might end up being the police chief. So that's what I learned from cops. I've never used a fireman type service, but I have known a couple, and they seem like, and maybe they all have PTSD, but they kind of just seem like guys that party a lot and cheat on their wives. People say, oh, aren't you appreciative you have roads? I could ride my fucking bike. All the roads do is bring other assholes to this area. So, I mean, to me, it's just, I've never taken welfare. My oldest daughter, her dad did pay child support. He paid $200 a month, and then he was giving $100 towards childcare and bathing, and then he was giving $100 towards her ballet a month. So he was paying me about $300 a month. So I did get a little support from him. I had her 80% of the time. I paid for everything else. But I think I treated that situation pretty fair. And I wanted to have her. And so I was willing to do that. And I think things worked out great between us. I really do. I'm not complaining about him. I'm just trying to state my case that I haven't done harm to anyone. I haven't overtaken from anyone. My second daughter, I have never taken money from her dad for anything. I work, I pay my bills, and I'm supposed to give the government half of what I make because I'm a 1099. I mean, that is like Sheriff of Nottingham shit. For schools that don't teach, for police who don't protect, for fire department who have like, I mean, now it's like fucking diversity training, all of these things anyway. I mean, I would rather go to jail. I would rather go to jail than give my money. And I know that's like kind of selfish because it's like, what about my kids? They would, but they're like at an age now where I think they'd be okay without me. And it's like, I would rather go to jail than give money to, like, I mean, okay, and here's the other thing. I talk to so many people in the public that actually work in the government locally, and all of them are like, shit's fucked locally. Like in Avila Beach, the water bill hasn't been raised in so long that now all of a sudden it has to get raised 110%. It's just like, well, how the fuck does that happen? And she said it's because everyone wanted to be elected, so no one wanted to be the bad guy. So it's just like, why do we even have these motherfuckers in office if they're not going to do anything? They're just going to keep getting reelected. There's all kinds of shit like that I hear about oh my God, I can't even, in my town, I can't even go there. But it's like, okay, small government doesn't even work. How the fuck does big government work? You know? Like, I'm sorry. I'd rather go to jail than financially contribute to this system. It's like I feel morally justified saying, fuck no, I'm not funding this. I am not. I mean, not to mention like the attempt at global domination. Like, I'm fucking not financially contributing to this, okay? I'm fucking not doing it. So anyway, I am a conscientious objector, and that may not end well, but it's not like I haven't been in prison my whole fucking life in one way or the other. Like, I'm not afraid. I have to be good to my own conscience, and my conscience is, do not pay these motherfuckers. That is, like, embarrassing to pay these people, to me. I would fucking rather go to jail. So, anyway, that's my stance on stuff. It's a bit negative tonight. No comical moments. But yeah, my conscience makes me an objector. So I'm a conscientious objector.